Well, this year's Sona's theme is following up on our commitment and making your future work better. The annual event affords the President an opportunity to speak to the nation about the general state of the country. It also allows for reflection on a wide range of political, economic and social issues. Thulasizwe Simelane joins us live from Parliament now. And Thulas, good morning to you once again. So the cheapest state of the nation in years, the wonder there is, what do these cutbacks entail exactly? And I understand you have the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, I should say, Thulasizwe Tsenoli. I wonder if the viewers are as interested as I am in how he plans to handle the EFF this year.
Xoli, you're mischievous. But you're absolutely right. The budget, we are told, has been cut. And part of the rationale for that is to sort of contain costs. That's partly because this whole exercise, all this pomp and fanfare and the whole joint sitting with many guests coming here, making it standing room only, will happen twice this year. And I mean, if we go by previous years' allocations for the budget, at some point it was around 3 million rand in one of the years, and it was brought down to about 1.9 million rand, I think, last year. You start to get a sense that these are not events that are cheap to host. But they are telling us as Parliament that this is a state event, so many of the costs are, it's basically activities that are done by the state, the flying of the grippens and sort of the marching of the various guards of honor. That's part of what happens in a state event. I'm joined, as you say, by Thulasizwe Tsenoli, and I'll be sure to perhaps pose a question to him about what you are wondering about. Thank you so much for coming through, Deputy Speaker. Let me ask you, on a day like this, you all play a role as presiding officers in ensuring that it rolls out smoothly. But what for you are the key features that would make it a successful State of the Nation address today?
The first thing is that we've got guests, as you say, which is not usual on an ordinary day and so on. The number and their significance in society. 3 arms of the state and the institutions that support democracy. Chapter 9, 1 and 10 institutions under the same roof, and members of parliament and their guests. Internationally, the diplomatic corps and so on, we have especially a responsibility that they are safe. That's our priority. And secondly, that they are able to hear the message uninterrupted, irresponsibly. In the nature of parliament, there are things that happen. There's a robustness that accompany. This is a political institution. It's not a wedding.
Right.
And so things will happen. But we expect, for us, what will be successful is the first one that I said, that everyone who came felt safe. There might be a slight inconvenience because in the nature of security, it can't not have a little inconvenience of sort in order to ensure the safety of everybody else. That's our priority. The political message is the one that should be heard loud and clear. And once that's done, that's what we think the day will be worth it.
How much responsibility have you taken over the years as presiding officers in Parliament and the leadership of Parliament for some of the disruptions that have happened, in the sense that, where you are deemed to not be doing what you are supposed to be doing as it relates to holding the executive to account, sort of creating that boiling up of frustration and perhaps leading to some of the sins we've seen in the last few years? How much responsibility do you take?
You're conflating two different things. The first one is disruption. We can't take responsibility for disruption. But secondly, also the robustness with which people are held accountable. I mean, you guys haven't reported the instances where members of the executive, the officials were told to go away because they hadn't done their work. So some of that, I agree, we could have done more of that, and to that extent, but we don't think it justifies acts that are better handled in the streets where you get the consequences of your disruption. There, the rule of the jungle applies. This is an institution that ought to be at the center of the political life of the public. What we would like to see happening is that what we do inside must reflect more or less what we expect people to do outside, more or less. No, let me take the 5, because the question is valid. How much of what's happening has been our responsibility? In the first place, we made certain assumptions about the rules and how we would conduct ourselves, even when we raised the sharpest critique of the executive. That does happen, can happen, without some of the levels of disruption that occurred. We didn't anticipate we would have to make rules about that. And that's the first mistake that we did. Because also, human beings are human beings. Even as members waive their rule books, they often haven't read what they are saying they are dealing with. Often, okay? We found that. But it's an important challenge. There's a secondary part to that, in the political one. The leadership of Parliament has sought to engage politically with members of all political parties to emphasize the necessity for a collaborative effort to deal with these things. The rules are really should only be resorted to when certain conditions occur, but ordinarily we should automatically be acting appropriately.
And how much of the management of the whole process boils down to your own personality and your style of managing conflict? I imagine, not that I imagine, I mean you see it when South Africans are watching Parliament on TV, that the Speaker will have her particular style, the House Chairperson her particular style, and you have your own particular style. Is it correct to say that things seem to, temperatures seem to rise a bit more when you are seated in that chair? You see more of the arguments and a bit more of it gets louder and sometimes really can get out of control quite quickly. Why is that?
I have no idea.
But have you seen it? Have you noticed it?
No, your theory and contrasting and differentiating us that way, I don't know whether it is so. There are other views that I have had, okay? But the important thing, I don't know whether it's my personality or the personality of the Speaker, or whether it's the calculation of the people who are engaging in these disruptive activities, who themselves plan these things. I have no idea. I haven't sourced where that comes from. But I don't quite agree with you that.
All right, just a final one. Today, do you expect that you would have to resort to the rules and to some of the measures that when they started out, we couldn't believe that Parliament is resorting to having that kind of security, being able to eject people out of the National Assembly, but it has become part of what Parliament can resort to in terms of the rules. Do you expect that tonight you would have to resort to that?
We have to always, firstly, be optimistic that disruption won't happen, that MPs will accept what they have collectively, or let me put it this way, the majority of the 13 political parties have agreed this is what the day is about, this is their agenda. So any other thing, we have an opportunity to do that during debate and elsewhere. But we have seen, even when we are optimistic, that things don't always work out to how we expect, that others have other plans. They already say it in public, and so we are always planning for that. We have to plan for disruption. Just as we plan overall, in case things go wrong, what do we do? It's a responsibility, it's both a political and a legislative responsibility, that we must ensure things happen properly, nobody is harmed, the disruption and the agenda of Parliament goes according to the majority of its members as they expect it, and that's our job, and we are pleased that we will do it if it happens.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. That's the Deputy Speaker, Thulasizwe Simelane, and I think you got your answer there, Xoli. I didn't want to make it just about the EFF. I wanted to get a sense of, how ready are they in case there's disruption of any kind during the sitting this afternoon, this evening. And he says they are ready and they will apply the rules as they always do.
So these rules, Thulas, very interesting from the Deputy Speaker there. The rules of the jungle will apply if disruptions do occur. Very interesting indeed. Thulasizwe Simelane out in Parliament for